마시나요? 저 봐야 되게.
Everything is walking
There's
distance.
been a battleground going on there between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's fighting, they've been making demonstrations and end up fighting each other. Fist fight. The city's really upset about this with people coming from around the country to go there. So now they're being very careful with the demonstration.
Even though my one of friends from Turkey, his name is Mohammed, he got a visa. He was just a tourist visa.
Shallow down?
They say it's like he's from Turkey. Just name is Mohammed.
I even learned how to
permission 보여줘. 요즘 어디도 비죠. 이렇게 준게 아무도 없고
where were they actually from?
외리 출근 지수로 여기라고 보이는 주로 여기 결혼할까 해도 여기 두개 주로 어디 미국 중에 미국 출근 지수로 좀 비교하면 많이
Business go way down. They cut all their flights to Qatar to America.
So right now, Qatar is doing for the good, like some middle of class, basically it's just a free
अगली सीट वहाँ पे ज़्यादा जगह है देखो ट्राइपॉड हाँ अरे 혼자 힘들다 धीरे 혼자 된지 보면
No. So when you use another flight, only another flight. I see. Depends actually. They bring some souvenir from the US house. And behind was US flag. What is the printed?
Looks like this, they have this rugby. Looks like that. Yesterday you missed it in TCB.
Oh yeah, I missed it. Yeah. You got off the shot.
Okay.
We have the same boss.
Yes, okay.
So you need my card.
Yeah.
My name's Alex. I'm with the embassy.
Okay.
So have you seen some of the stories that have already come out?
Yes. Yeah. We also filed yesterday stories about India. The delegation.
I better run. I'm sorry.
제원조 슈초버지 다리 베결로니 동계다 십시십시 치루니 동접대 당아베 제버주 니무데니 베길라나메베 오티 지노 콘스캠고 춤초 우슈도 베미틱존네 아리 죄조 팀이 구접 소중라 가수슈규 슝제 제고이 최대 구접 소중 디낭라야 아리 망주초베 고티 점쿠 낸시 펠로시 조르규베 죄조 팀이 구십 엘리트 앵글 당 구십 짐 센슨 브레너 구십 짐 맥가원 점쿠 베티 맥칼럼 점쿠 조이스 베티 점쿠 프라밀라 자이팔 점쿠 주디추 제 아메리게 망조당 지딘 초번이가네 큰 죄조 워메 팀이게 고고단제 페나유 땡은 칠루니동 게로라야 베나 스타지 시고 체모 총회 갑수왕 점쿠 낸시 펠로시 초당 구십 짐 센슨 브레너 남니지베 큰 죄조 팀이 당주 슈거 드럼살라 체베낭테 베된 동셈냠게 슈워 자요바데 급디두야 점쿠 낸시 펠로시 초 아리 죄조 워메 초제 토겐 셰심바데 다링 델라야 롱어 구이제수 라리안 점쿠 초기 네티베 죄조기 최대 구접 소존시 슈거 드럼살라 체베낭워 페미틱존네 가수단 제 섬리 슈고예.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and privilege to have His Holiness the Dalai Lama grace today's public felicitation in honor of the United States bipartisan congressional delegation led by the United States House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, consisting of 8 members of the United States House of Representatives. Representative Jim Sensenbrenner, Representative Elliot Engel, Representative Jim McGovern, Representative Betty McCollum, Representative Judy Chu, Representative Joyce Beatty, and Representative Pramila Jayapal. In the wake of the Pan-Tibet uprising of the year 2008, the then Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, led a 10-member bipartisan congressional delegation that also included Representative Sensenbrenner to Dharamsala to express solidarity with the Tibetan people. Today, 9 years later, the Central Tibetan Administration is honored to welcome the second visit of the high-level United States bipartisan congressional delegation to Dharamsala.
제공운주 능규 통마들라야 창막구싱토 벽이 되어가 속반에 응아르 단체 벽 계급 첨부 결루 배신발 반대 시경 초기 벽이 야다 카잉수 댕주 능규.
Let us stand and join the rendition of the Tibetan national anthem as Honorable President of the Central Tibetan Administration will hoist Tibetan national flag.
di je la ya changma ku sheng yu mi to we da pe mi za duen che je be lu so long je le dong nang ken ge je po po ma nam la nyang e khu du nga je kam ji rin shu kyo.
Let us now observe a minute of silence in memory of the Tibetan martyrs who have sacrificed their precious lives for the cause of Tibet.
Kam ji sa wa yin ma shu ro na. Je rim nga ba de la ge she ma shi u shu to pe ge de ga chok ba ne den jing me lam un zo ge changma ku sheng to ur de na kyu.
I now request 4 Geshe-mas and the artist of Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts to lead the prayer of words of truth.
Keshima kon number ni chino kon skem go chumcho ge gongshi tar nangbe shungchen kabe ngala loba lomye tarsun chungche longai me chindu chungni be tsewni sanyi ni modela ya lugyu dangshin dembe gesheme senda sheken konsu shata chaga yore geshema tonzo tangbo di nanglo la ya geshema nishu tamba dostyen yore di jela ya zerim thukbo de pande sikyong bumram balosan senge chone sungshe nangyo.
On 22nd December last year, during the conferment of the historic Geshe-Mat degree, the highest academic title equivalent to PhD degree, to 20 nuns of Tibetan Buddhist tradition, His Holiness the Dalai Lama remarked that through education, women from all over the world have contributed significantly to the social and political development of their countries and have risen to become leaders in their respective countries. The conferment was a long-standing aspiration of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and reflects a seminal milestone as the degree was awarded only to the male monks earlier. I now request Honorable President of Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Lobsang Sengye, to deliver the welcome address.
Bimi laname buti kongsu jamgyen chimucho la kucha tata jamne gindu gide mangzo kaosum gi zazo namba shungde mayimbe sobakha gi kuzab the tumi namba mima namba 상만 드린 예 가샤 첩 제제 어리 저조 믹스에 군대 넘버 대패바 기 제원이 말라 제원이 뭐 닝탁반네 첨지 테스트를 시슈야이 예 선대 뒤즈에 게레 나는 시 군대 넘버 상만 어린이 인도에 가블라 예 가샤 첩 제제 담셰디 인지견需求 제시제 가드 쉐이 Your Holiness, the great 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the life and soul of Tibet. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we believe, is the manifestation of Buddha of compassion. Generosity and Tibet are inseparable. Dalai Lamas and Tibetan people are forever connected. As long as there is Tibet, as long as there is Tibetan people, His Holiness the Dalai Lama will return to this world to alleviate the sufferings of the Tibetan people forever. As you just saw, the prayer led by 5 Geshe-Mas, they are the nuns who got a PhD or doctorate degree for the first time in the history of Tibet, as per the vision of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. This year, we also held the first ever Tibetan National Women Conference. We also adopted the revised Tibetan Women Empowerment Policy. We also have Tibetan Women National Day. And during the National Women Conference, His Holiness Dalai Lama kindly graced the meeting and blessed the occasion. His Holiness is a big-time advocate of women's rights. So in 1960s, after we came to India in 1963, we had women representation in the Tibetan parliament. Since then, His Holiness has been a biggest advocate of women's rights, and some people do call him the feminist Dalai Lama. And soon you're going to listen to a song of women empowerment policy also. I know Madam Leader Nancy Pelosi and the Congress delegation wanted to know about the status of women in the Tibetan society. But under the leadership of His Holiness Dalai Lama, Tibetan leaders are doing well and will do better as we move forward. I would also like to acknowledge my colleagues, Chief Justice Commissioner Kajul La, and also Honorable Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament, Khenpo Sonatembe La, for being part of this felicitation. Today we are here to deeply appreciate the US delegation led by leader Nancy Pelosi and senior Republican Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner. And I would also like to acknowledge Representative Eliot Engel, Representative Jim McGovern, Representative Betty McCollum, Representative Judy Chu, Representative Joyce Beatty, Representative Pramila Jayapal, for coming to Dharamsala to be with us. Your delegation sends a message of hope to Tibetans inside Tibet. Your delegation sends a message of justice to China. Your delegation sends a message of freedom to the world. As you can see, smiles of the Tibetan people and children, they reflect the smiles of 6 million Tibetans inside Tibet as well. I would like to have special mention of Charge d'Affaires Mary K.L. Carlson here, and also Reva Price for being the main coordinator of this, and USAID India Mission Director Mark A. White, and from the US Embassy, and our friend Graham Mayer. And one who is missing, who is not here, is Richard Gere. His father is celebrating his 95th birthday, so he could not be here, but he worked on behalf of ICT to make this delegation reach Dharamsala. As Madam Leader said yesterday, it was 3 years ago when I was in DC. Madam Leader, Representative Jim McGovern, we discussed and came on 8 points. Among those 8 points, 7 points were all implemented, which means you all are, unlike other politicians who just talk the talk, but you walk the walk as well. And among those 8 points, one was to visit Tibet, and Leader Nancy Pelosi led the delegation, visited Tibet, and she said, we don't want to see the gold-painted roof of monastery, but we want to see the real practice of Buddhism among monks and nuns. To put it politely, she and the delegation were quite frank with the Chinese leaders when they said, His Holiness is revered and respected by millions of people around the world, including us. Right in the face of Chinese leaders is a very courageous on your part. And Leader Nancy Pelosi is not only has been with us, the Tibetan cause, and being a friend of His Holiness for so long, but also is grooming and inviting other young congressmen and women, Jim, Betty, Judy, Joyce, and Pramila, who will be with us for decades to come, like Nancy Pelosi, and lead the march of freedom towards Tibet. I would also like to congratulate Leader Nancy Pelosi for being awarded by the Freedom House, because you represent an advocate of freedom around the world, particularly for the Tibetan people. Madam, you deserve it. But as you know, Freedom House has come up with a freedom index of around the world, and China is in the bottom. 2 years ago, Freedom House index showed Tibet right at the bottom, just above Syria. We all have read about what's going on in Syria in the headlines of newspapers, but you barely read about what is going on inside Tibet. And the Reporters Without Borders said that it is more difficult to get into Tibet than North Korea. Again, we read about North Korea in the headlines of news media, but not so much about Tibet. As we gather here, 147 Tibetans have burned themselves, committed self-immolation. Just this year, 3 Tibetans burned themselves. Just last week on May 2nd, on the eve of your visit here, 1 more teenager committed self-immolation. Even though we discourage self-immolation, but the self-immolation continues in Tibet. That reflects the desperate and determination of the Tibetan people. What they're saying is occupation of Tibet is unacceptable. Repression of Tibetans is unbearable, that they will give up their life for the cause of Tibet. Even teenagers are pushed to burn themselves. And as we celebrate this day of your visit here, Larungar Monastery, the largest in Tibet, is being demolished. It's a 12-month project. From 12,000 monks and nuns, it is reduced to 5,000 monks and nuns. And these 7,000 monks and nuns are expelled from Larungar, which includes Chinese Buddhists as well. So this is the situation in Tibet. But Chinese government is trying to make Tibet into China or a Chinese town and Tibetan into Chinese people. They are using severe measures and what I call 3S. 1, subjugation or suppression of the Tibetan people. Number 2, providing subsidies to Chinese migrants to move to Tibet and overwhelm the situation. 3rd, they're taking advantage of the summer in Tibet because in winter, Tibet is still Tibetan majority. For we Tibetans took 3,500 years ago, we moved from 3,000 meters high to 4,000 meters high in the Tibetan altitude because wheat grows at 3,000 meters high. Barley can grow on 4,000 meters high. When we discovered barley, we moved from 3,000 to 4,000 meters high. Hence, no matter how many Chinese migrants move to Tibet, it will take 500 to 1,000 years of genetic adaptation for Chinese to move and settle on the Tibetan plateau. So hence, Tibet is Tibetan majority in winter. Once the suppression is removed, subsidies is removed, and global warming does not expedite, Tibet will remain majority Tibetan people. But we do believe that the Chinese project will not succeed for 3 A's: altitude, attitude, and aptitude. And I already told you, altitude of Tibet is 4,000 meters high. It will take generations of Chinese to settle on the Tibetan altitude. Number 2 is attitude. Tibetan attitude is based on rugged and resilience of the mountain people. We've been there for thousands of years. We will be there for thousands of years. The Tibetan spirit will not die. Tibetan people will not give up. All those Tibetans who are committing self-immolation, all the 3 nuns who committed suicide as the Larungar monastery is being demolished, their spirit, their aspiration is they want to see return of His Holiness Dalai Lama to Tibet and freedom be restored to Tibetan people. And our aptitude is based on Buddhism or Nalanda tradition of His Holiness Dalai Lama's teaching. Buddhism is 2,500 years old. Communism is 100 years old. There is no competition between the two. After communism is gone, Tibetan Buddhism will be there for another 2,000 years. Tibet will be there. Tibetan people will be there. Tibetan spirit will be there. In the last 58 years, we have been standing tall under the leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama because we have friends like you. Leader Nancy Pelosi and the US delegation, you have come all the way to Dharamsala because of our leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and you do support the just cause of Tibet. And His Holiness has a unique style or quality that attracts people from the right and the left, from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. You know, there's only one person in Washington, D.C. who could bring Senator Edward Kennedy and Jesse Helms in the same room. That happens only when His Holiness the Dalai Lama goes to D.C. And when U.S. Congressional Medal was given to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Leader Nancy Pelosi and President George Bush and Laura Bush were there to facilitate the occasion. And President George Bush then told His Holiness, normally I don't get along with her, but for you, I make an exception and I'm here to support the cause. And since Franklin Roosevelt days, America has supported Tibet and Tibetan people. Franklin Roosevelt wrote a letter to His Holiness and gave him a watch as well. And as His Holiness says, he liked the watch so much, he kept it for so long, he lost the letter till President Obama gave him a copy of the letter. And also US government and the people have been with us by passing the US Tibetan Policy Act in 2002, which mandates that the special coordinator for Tibetan issue be appointed, and we hope the new administration will appoint the special coordinator on Tibetan issues soon. We also hope, continuing the tradition, as you can see from the photographs here, the presidents of US government have met with His Holiness Dalai Lama, from Bush Sr. to Clinton to Bush Jr. and President Barack Obama. We hope the new administration under President Donald Trump will continue the tradition and meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama soon. We are also very grateful for US Congress for granting aid and fund to Tibetan administration for our projects. Through USAID and PRM in the State Department, all those funding are used very frugally, efficiently, and impactful way. That's why all the schools that you see, the hospitals that you see, settlements that you see are run partly through the funding of the US government, for which we are very grateful. And Leader Nancy Pelosi also went to Nepal and met with the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister and the Speaker of Government of Nepal, with Republican Congressman Sansa Benner and all the congressmen. They again, even though they are from the US, they are the US Congress representative, but they represented Tibetan people and spoke for the Tibetan people in Nepal, given their difficult situation, for which we are very grateful. In a few days, and the delegation will go to Delhi and again meet with leaders of Indian government. Again, thank Indian government for supporting the cause of Tibet, because India has done the most for Tibetan people. Because His Holiness the Dalai Lama as himself says, is the longest guest of India. The largest number of Tibetans are in India. CTA is based in India. So we are profoundly grateful to this great nation and great people of India. And we also hope that the new administration of the US government will continue to support the middle way approach when President Barack Obama met with His Holiness Dalai Lama 3 times, White House issued a statement saying they applaud and strongly support the middle way approach. US government supports one China policy and also supports middle way policy. So there is no contradiction between one China policy and middle way policy, and we hope this new government or new administration in Washington, D.C. will continue to support the middle way approach and encourage dialogue between the envoys of the Dalai Lama and Chinese representative very soon. Often we are asked this question, do you think there is any chance for Tibetan issue? Don't you think your job is very difficult given the power and might of China? But we do believe that our day will come sooner than later because we have friends like you. And also, someone said, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. We have waited long enough, and we hope that justice will prevail in Tibet very soon. When we are asked, is there any hope? We say, yes, there is hope, because same thing was asked to Nelson Mandela when he spent 28 years in prison. But in the end, Nelson Mandela restored democracy in South Africa, restored freedom to people of South Africa. Same thing was said about Martin Luther King at one time. When he gave the speech, I have a dream. Many people thought it's not possible, but then soon, situation and civil rights situation in America improved. Aung San Suu Kyi, who would have thought just 4 years ago she will be free and walking the streets of Burma or Rangoon. Even Northern Ireland, when there was conflicts and bloodshed, many people ruled out the conflict be ever be solved. But it did happen. Good Friday Agreement was signed. Similarly, in East Timor and Aceh, and Berlin Wall also came down. All these are examples of recent years. We witness it right in front of us. These things happening and changing history. We just think it is our turn. As I said, Nobel laureate Nelson Mandela walked the streets of South Africa. Nobel laureate Aung San Suu Kyi walked the streets of Burma. Nobel laureate Ramos Horta of East Timor walked the streets of East Timor. And also Nobel laureates in Northern Ireland walked the streets of Northern Ireland. Our prayer and our hope and our dream of all these Tibetans who burned themselves and 6 million Tibetans inside Tibet, our prayer and our dream is that our own Nobel laureate, His Holiness, the great 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, will soon walk the streets of Tibet. I do believe that day is sooner than later. We ask you, we appeal to you to be with us for a little longer when His Holiness will walk the streets of Lhasa and His Holiness will give Kalachakra teaching from the Potala Palace. And millions of Tibetans, not just Tibetans, Chinese, will be there in Lhasa to receive the teaching from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. When that happy day happens, again we will invite U.S. congressional delegation led by Nancy Pelosi. At that time, it won't be a guided tour. It will be a free tour. You can travel anywhere. You can meet any Tibetan you want. And we will organize a big dance party. We all will dance that you saw yesterday, Tipa. We will dance like them and celebrate to the wee hours of night. And I know His Holiness prohibits drinking, but on that day he will make an exception, allow us to drink beer But beer won't be Budweiser, it will be a Tibetan beer called Chang. And His Holiness will, like during his childhood, he looked down through his telescope at us, and with a smile, he will say, "Happy day." Now time has come. There is urgency also that it is time to fulfill the aspirations and dreams of the Tibetan people. The dream is, let His Holiness the Dalai Lama return to Tibet. Let the freedom bell in Philadelphia ring in Tibet soon. That's the dream. When that celebration happens, it will be another day in world history. A chapter will be rewritten that justice prevail in Tibet, freedom prevail in Tibet, peace prevail in Tibet. The co-author of that chapter will be this great country, India, and the great country, America, led by our friends in the US Congress and the US government. Let us all march forward and fulfill the wishes of His Holiness, fulfill the wishes of Tibetans in Tibet, that His Holiness the Dalai Lama return to Tibet very soon. Long live His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Thank you very much.
Zerim Kevadelaya, Ari Tezotimi, Kusha Jim Sensenbrenner, Chana Sungshay Nangyo.
I request Representative Jim Sensenbrenner to address the gathering.
Thank you very much. Your Holiness, Mr. President, and friends gathered from all around the world to this public felicitation. I'm Jim Sensenbrenner from Wisconsin. I have been in Congress for over 38 years. I'm the one Republican on this bipartisan delegation, and I'm here with honor and with gratitude because I wish to assure Your Holiness, as well as everyone else present here and everyone who may be listening, that there is no disagreement between the political parties in the United States Congress on our love and respect for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as well as our solidarity with the cause of the Tibetan people to be free from the repression that has been put upon them for a very, very long time from Beijing. If one looks at the history of the United States, many of the people who emigrated from Europe to the U.S. before we received our independence were doing because they were fleeing religious repression back home in Europe. And they wanted to be able to practice their religion freely and without interference from government authority. And if you look at the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, one of the things that it very expressly states is that the government or the Congress shall make no law restricting the free exercise of religion. And that has been in our Constitution for over 220 years. It is something that we practice, and people who are repressed in their religious beliefs are able to get justice in the courts of the United States. And one of the things that I believe in, since I've spent much of my career dealing with issues of justice, is that without justice, there is no freedom. Today, there is no justice in Tibet for Tibetans, for their religion, for their culture, for their language, and for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And only when there is justice in all of these areas will there be freedom in Tibet. And that is something that we in the United States Congress are firmly committed to doing. You have seen the United States government step up and help fund keeping Tibetan culture, language, and religion alive here in Dharamsala and elsewhere where there are Tibetans in the world. That is an irrevocable commitment, and that is something that the United States will stand behind until Tibet is free and until there is justice for Tibetans. This is a civil rights issue. It is an issue where Tibet is oppressed by China. It is an issue that affects the people and affecting the people's aspirations. And by empowering people to be able to fulfill their aspirations, which is something that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has preached throughout his life, then the entire society will be uplifted. Your Holiness, I am honored and I am proud to be here and proud to be able to speak these words in your presence. You have been an inspiration not only to Tibet, but to nationalities all around the world. And I think it is very hard to find any public figure in the world, and I'm not saying political figure, I'm saying public figure around the world, who is universally loved and universally respected as His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I wish to conclude by saying that in the Congress, we are with you, Your Holiness, but we are with all of you so that you can reach your aspirations, so that you can go home to Tibet, so that you will be able to freely practice your religion, keep the culture alive, educate the kids, and remember, receive justice, because with justice comes freedom. Thank you.
Tijela zerim gowa de la pyogi doga chogone pyogi pymegi telu bugyu töshi dina dile chinda sumbegi tseba chungni nimu de la ya shungje ani jik teng tangbor pyogi pyme nimu sungze da ta che sazom dosnang gyore.
The artist of the Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts will sing and perform the Tibetan Women's Empowerment song that debuted on the occasion of First Tibetan Women's Day observed on 12th of March this year.
Dijelaya Zerim Chuadela, Ari Trezo Tumi, Kushab Jim McGowan Chon, Sungshenangyo.
I request Representative Jim McGovern to address the gathering.
Well, thank you. Well, to Leader Pelosi and Congressman Sensenbrenner and all my colleagues on this delegation, I want to say thank you for your unwavering commitment to human rights. And I'm proud to be on this delegation. To the Tibetan people, thank you for all that you have given to the world. And to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, thank you for being born. You challenge us to be better people, and we are grateful for your commitment to peace and justice, and we appreciate your leadership calling on the world community to protect this precious planet from the ravages of climate change. And we have come to Dharamsala because we believe in you, and we stand with you. And we stand with President Lobsang Sanjay, and we stand with all the Tibetan people. And we pledge to work for the day that His Holiness and all Tibetans can go back to Tibet and freely practice their religion, celebrate their culture, traditions, and language, and yes, have genuine autonomous status according to the Middle Way approach. China needs to understand that years of repression have not dulled the excitement that Tibetans and millions of people around the world have for His Holiness and His vision. Love, peace, and justice combined are more powerful than any amount of repression or violence. So we call upon the Chinese government to respect the human rights of all Tibetans, to release all Tibetan prisoners of conscience, including the 11th Panchen Lama, who is one of the world's longest-serving political prisoners. And by the way, for the record, the Chinese government does not have the authority or the right to name the reincarnated religious leaders of Tibet. We just returned from a visit to Nepal, and we urge that government's leaders to register all eligible Tibetans who have fled repression in China so that they can get the appropriate documentation to legally seek employment and travel freely. And as a United States Congressman, I call upon my own government to make Tibet a bigger priority. Meet regularly and at the highest levels with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and with President Lobsang Sanjay. Insist that China restart the Chinese-Tibetan dialogue so that we can move forward on a whole range of issues. Work with other governments around the world to create a group of friends that will meet regularly in a coordinated way to support the Tibetan people. And we need to do so much more. But I used to have an old history professor who used to say, the world will not get better on its own. And he was right. When like-minded people all across this globe, what we need to do is stand together and work together and work deliberately for peace and for justice. We need to be the wind at the back of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We need to be the wind at the back of President Lobsang Sanjay. We need to be the wind at the back of all Tibetan people all over the world, but especially in Tibet. And as I conclude, I just want to make one thing clear. Despite all that the Tibetan people have gone through, I am hopeful about the future. I believe that goodness will prevail. I believe that what's right and what's just will prevail. I believe the future is bright, and I am proud to stand with you. Thank you very much.
Zerim Chukji Wadelaya, Pande, Pemiman Chidu Tozo, Kembosanam Tempe, Chone Sungshenangu.
I now request Kembosanam Tempel, Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, to address the gathering.
Konjen Peme Yanje Lana me Beauty Jiden Hide Deben Consum Church Jerbo, Sinon Gonzashonga Jamochola, Gosum Kisha Wendu Pe Tone, Showi Gendi Gedenambatan, the Rimese Nandam Jinjagon Dito, Chedu Pepe, Arim Mototsobi, Gotitan, Jozo Omi Tozo Surba. Kyamko Nancy Pelosi Chodan Adu Tozoki Kotop Tumi number Pemit Jinzuji Zezo Leisure number Tan Sigi Leisure number Yunde do Yunde Maim Bideden Kagi Genzi number Tan Yan Kunde number Dindi Sesha Yola Tenepemi Moshindi Lanzo Jitop Hid and Tomar Gazen going on and some trashy delay. There is the teacher Jembe, Tomshe de Nunuji in all the future what is showing. First of all, on behalf of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile and all the Tibetans around the world, would like to extend a very warm welcome to the Democrat leader and the former Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Mrs. Nancy Pelosi, and all the parliamentary dignitaries from the United States of America. Thank you all for joining us here today. You all have been staunch supporters of the Tibetan cause, and I'm sure this gathering will mark an important moment in the history of Tibet. It will also send a strong message to the Chinese government that Tibetans are never alone. As we all are aware, the situation inside Tibet is deteriorating day by day. The self-immolation of the Tibetans and the demolition of monastery institutions continued in Tibet. There's no improvement in the overall human rights situation under the hardline policies of the Chinese leadership. The Chinese government is still violating religious freedom in Tibet. The restriction on the practice of Buddhism is akin to the restriction on Tibetan culture. Such restrictions were also imposed on Tibetan language, which is the ultimate identity of Tibetan as a nationality. The relentless promotion of Mandarin under the People's Republic of China has seized the space of minority languages. We fear that such restrictions, along with cultural assimilation, would lead Tibetan to become alienated from our own language. Along with various atrocities, Tibetans inside Tibet are facing numerous social discrimination, travel restrictions, and many more. Tibet's rich and delicate environment with its global significance also lay waste and exploited in the hands of China's propensity toward its global influence and economic growth. Ultimately, the management of Tibet's rich water resources, the environment will have a long-term impact on the Asian countries. His Holiness the Dalai Lama has relentlessly pursued a mutually beneficial middle way policy, which is a permanent course to resolve the issue of Tibet peacefully. This approach meets the vital need of the Tibetan people while ensuring the unity and stability of the People's Republic of China. We need your kind support to encourage the Chinese authorities to resume dialogue between the representatives of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Chinese government. U.S.-Tibetan Policy Act of 2002 was indeed a great political and a historical accomplishment of the Tibetan people. Similarly, India has been a gracious host to all the Tibetans in exile over the decades. I would like to convey my heartfelt gratitude for your continued support to the cause of Tibet. It is your support that encourages the Tibetan movement and gives hope, especially to the Tibetans inside Tibet. We remain in debt to your unwavering support. So once again, I would like to thank all of you for sparing your precious time to gather here, and I believe with your support, the truthful cause of Tibet shall prevail. Thank you very much.
I request Representative Elliot Engel to address the gathering.
Tashi delay. I am so happy to be here with so many good friends. I'm so happy to be here with the Tibetan people. I'm so happy to have seen those beautiful Tibetan children yesterday, where they were all playing and talking and speaking good English, by the way. And it's really a pleasure to see all of you. I want to thank Nancy Pelosi for taking me with her. I want to thank His Holiness for being such an inspiration to all of us for so many years. I told him yesterday that about 20 years ago, I took a picture with him when he came to Washington. And just about 6 months ago, we took another picture. He looks the same. I look 20 years older. And I bring you greetings from the American people. We believe in democracy and freedom for all people, and especially for the Tibetan people. I come from New York City, and in my harbor in New York City, you have the beautiful Statue of Liberty, which talks about freedom and all opportunity and things that we have pride in as Americans. And we know that the people of Tibet have that same yearning for freedom. And I want to leave you with a wonderful thought, and that is, we will never stop until Tibet is free. I have a message for the leadership in Beijing. It's very simple. Get out of Tibet. Let the people of Tibet determine their own faith. Let the people of Tibet decide what their future would be. Self-determination for all people is very important when you talk about democracy. No one group should impose its will on another group. I know that when I look at China, I see oppression. When I look at the Tibetan people, I see freedom and opportunity. So I want to say to all of you, and certainly to His Holiness, who I have the greatest honor to be with him. He's truly a man of great wonder. I want to just say to all of you, the American people will never forget you. The American people will be fighting with you. And we're going to go back to Washington, to the Congress in Washington, all of us, and talk about our experience. I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee in Congress. We look all around the world to try to see where America can be helpful. America will certainly be helpful to the Tibetan people. Thank you. God bless you. And thank you, His Holiness.
Tijelaya Ari Trezo Tumi Jamku Pramila Jayapal Chone Sungshe Nangyo.
I request Representative Pramila Jayapal to address the gathering.
And Tashi the Lake. My name is Pramila Jayapal, and I represent the Seattle area in the state of Washington in the United States Congress. And it is such an honor to be here with this incredible delegation, with the Tibetan people, brothers and sisters, and of course, with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. It is a great honor to be in your presence, Your Holiness, because you have been a beacon of hope and inspiration and a guide not only for Tibetans, but for people all over the world working for justice, for peace, for freedom, and for the end of suffering for all human beings, for all beings. This trip to Nepal and India is very special for me because, like many of you, I was born in India. And I've had the great honor to live side by side with my Tibetan brothers and sisters in Madras, where I was born, in Chennai, in Kerala, where my family is from, in Bangalore, where my parents live, and in Uttar Pradesh, where there's a big Tibetan community. And I'm very proud of my birth country for giving a space for Tibetans to live and to be in peace and to have a government in exile. But it isn't just that we have given, we have also received. We have received the gifts of Tibetan culture and language and arts and beliefs from all of you, and so I'm grateful to you for that. I went to the United States by myself when I was 16 years old, and so now to come back 35 years later as a congresswoman in the United States Congress and the first South Asian American woman elected to the House of Representatives is a great honor. And I'm proud to be a citizen of the United States of America, which has consistently and in a bipartisan way said that we stand for the Tibetan people, that we stand for freedom and justice, that we stand for human rights, and that we will raise our voice and use our power as a country that has that power in the world to fight for the Tibetan people to return to Tibet and to practice your religion and your culture in peace. And so on this auspicious day of Buddha Purnima, the day of Lord Buddha's enlightenment, I give my deepest thanks to all of you for your courage, your generosity, your perseverance, and your resilience. As His Holiness told us yesterday, the powers of coercion and force may be strong in the short term, but in the end, truth will prevail and truth will always win. And so today, my wish for all of us, for the Tibetan people, for the Chinese people, for the American people, and for people around the world, is that we work diligently for and that we achieve full enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Thank you so much.
디젤라야 벽이 되어가 저번에 그 갸든 냠셰 세부슈교.
The artist of Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts will now sing and perform a song celebrating the 80th birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. The song debuted in year 2015 on the occasion of His Holiness's 80th birth anniversary.
She can't give me the more,
Dijela ya tanenki ari trezo ki chete kuzap sochung neti nanke ari mangzo be uti jamku Nancy Pelosi chone sungshe nangyo.
May I now invite the United States House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi to address the gathering.
To each of you personally, I say, Tashi Delay. Tashi Delay. Tashi Delay. Tashi Delay. I'm very honored to be here. Anytime any of us can be in the presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama is a special, special occasion. And I'm proud to be here with a delegation from across America, bringing greetings to all of you from the people of America. I want my colleagues to stand up and join me here. I'm not going to speak long, but I want to associate myself with the remarks of my co-chair of this delegation, Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner, who spoke so beautifully about the bipartisan Democrats and Republicans alike supporting the aspirations of the Tibetan people. Now, I just want to show you from how many places in our country. Mr. Sensenbrenner is from Wisconsin. Elliot Engel is from New York. Jim McGovern is from Massachusetts. Betty McCollum is from Minnesota. Judy Chu is from California. Pramila Jayapal is from the state of Washington. You heard from her. And I want to say how proud we all are to be here with our charge d'affaires, Mary Kay Carlson, from the American Embassy in New Delhi. Thank you. So I understand that this beautiful song about His Holiness's 80th birthday is a wish that he lives to be 113 years old. I am sure that we all associate ourselves with that remark, and I know it's good news to the government of Beijing. We're all here to pay tribute to His Holiness, a visionary, a man of compassion, a man of hope. We are seeing on our visit, we came to see you. You have inspired us with your hope. I am more hopeful than ever that we will meet the challenge that faces us. My hope springs from His Holiness's message of compassion. Hope exists. People say, where is hope? Hope exists right where His Holiness tells us, right between faith, deep faith in religion, and compassion, faith and belief that people are good. Our faith in the goodness of others and their compassion gives us hope. Anyone who visits the Tibetan people, whether in Tibet, here, or anywhere in the world, as we did in Nepal, as Mr. McGovern mentioned earlier, see the determination that you have to preserve the authenticity of being Tibetan. When we see the sparkle in the eyes of the children yesterday at the Children's Village, we saw hope that they will one day return home to Tibet. When we saw the Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts last night and today, we saw the hope that they would bring the authenticity of the Tibetan art home to Tibet. Thank you to all of you. When we heard the leadership of Dr. Sangay, President Sangay, the speaker, your leadership of the court here, we saw hope for the progress of freedom for Tibet. We were, Betty McCollum, Joyce Beatty. Oh, I didn't see. Come here, Joyce Beatty. Joyce Beatty is here from Ohio, and she was with us from Ohio. I didn't introduce her earlier. Joyce Beatty came with us last year to Tibet, as did Betty McCollum, Jim McGovern. And we went to the Patola Palace, and we saw the room where His Holiness lived. And we promised each other then and there that we would do everything in our power to make sure he would return to that place. Most of all, we're inspired by his message, His Holiness's message of hope, not only for Tibetans, but as my colleagues have said, for the dignity of all people, wherever they are throughout the world. I was honored to be Speaker of the House when His Holiness received the Congressional Gold Medal. As President Sangay said, it was a special tribute that President George W. Bush came and that Mrs. Bush came as well. With the gold medal, we honored the Tibetan people, all of you, again, and His Holiness for it. We said in the medal, many enduring and outstanding contributions to peace and enduring contribution to peace, nonviolence, human rights, and religious understanding. You know that when he received the Nobel Peace Prize, he was the first person in history to receive the prize for all of those things, plus the first person to receive it with mention of his leadership and vision on protecting God's creation, the environment. Thank you, Your Holiness. But so many people came the day of our giving the medal, a gold medal to His Holiness, that we had to have an additional outside ceremony such as this. Thousands of people came from all over America to witness his award, but also to be inspired by His Holiness and to congratulate him. What we see here today in support of the Tibetan people, we have said, what we say here, we have said to the top leadership in the Chinese government. We recognize that China weighs heavily on any country, any corporation, any person, and Richard Garrett can attest to that, who speaks out for the Tibetan people. China uses its economic leverage to silence the voices of friends of Tibet. But if we do not speak out against oppression in Tibet and in the rest of China, because of China's economic power, we lose all moral authority to talk about human rights anywhere else in the world. We will not be silenced. You will not be silenced. So, the brutal tactics of the Chinese government, I won't go into them because His Holiness prayed for me that I would rid myself of my negative attitude about dwelling on the negative too much. But the brutal tactics of the Chinese government to erase religion, culture, and language on the Tibetan people challenges the conscience of the world. We will meet that challenge. Working together, we will meet that challenge. When they say to us, when we were in Tibet, they said to us, we support religion. We gilded the roof of the temple. We painted the roof of the temple. We gilded the roof. We said back to them, we're not interested in what you're gilding the roof. We're interested that you're guarding the minds of the children, and we're interested in freedom of education, of culture and religion in Tibet, not painting the roof of the temple. And so, again, my colleague, Mr. Sensenbrenner, began as the co-leader of this delegation, and I will close by saying to some in China, you know, we hope they will see the light. And with His Holiness's prayer and vision and all of your prayers and vision, that dream will come true, that they recognize that something is missing there, that they will see the light. To some in China, the authentic, autonomous Tibet is inconceivable. To us, it is inevitable. It is inevitable. And so we must shorten the distance between the inconceivable to them and the inevitable to us. Working together, we will do that. We will make sure they will see the light. I'm certain that with your devotion, your determination, your commitment to Tibetan values, culture, language, religion, and under the leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who will live to be at least 113 years old, I am certain that we will succeed. Thank you all very much. Hashi Delay, Hashi Delay, Hashi Delay. Thank you.
디젤라야 벽이 라나메베 우티 진노 콘스캠고 첨부전에 깔롭 같은 체교.
May I now have the distinct privilege of requesting His Holiness the Dalai Lama to deliver the keynote address.
야, 나더니 뭐였어? 딜 커베. 아니, 아주 뱀이 겐지 살짝 장조라. 엔데 무엇 마커베. 다 뱀이 지금 점니 라왕 유루카를 여대버 조체. 아니 사고를 또야 라왕 체니. 남자 warrior 대경기 실리 자신면만 안 사물로리야 가다 같이 측하시 중인 되어서 다 나도다 그 미리 세야디 지금 싸워네 뭐제 템번 시샤체나 하나만 노동라 니슈순주 시기도가 친니순게 시기도 저작한다 지 미 그게 가시고 미디지조로 차야 자연한 게 배진 가시 차되게 거래 가시 자지 엔다 난주 미럽데 다 되긴교 하자 전부 정말이 안 당하죠 나주 너그 로리아데 센주를 줘체 다 되도 뭐네다 말아서 배배 커주는 예번 난신 뭐셔봐 남도 삼아도 매배소지 다 컨디션요 사배 지 능섭신에 대봐야지 대대식이 당아서 내당 차버려. 대내 보리 매일매기 뒤수심에 거둘러 당아서 잔쇼고 차네 롱검중 앞에 다 하침버려. 당 고등 안서배 지금 딱 컨디션 선배 남자로 신 대고야 내당디 림매기 파 지금 요친체 딱 들이겨서 다만 들이대 차잖아. 아주 잔쇼를 해. 잔쇼에 뭐는 샤나? 깨민 거미 소리지. 레디네 땅 아주 멋심면서 멋시중. 조금면서 조부중. 잡조층에 학습 남다기. 네 뺀주고 캐변을 땐 잡조치와 말해. 첩색이 나다가 와는 잡조치와 말해. đảm bảo 잡조치기야 해. 된대지기. 다 들대 차잖아. 아메리카다 저서 태미. 다 난시 펠로시 가서 로망공 멋심버리. 아니 공기. 공당. 아니 공기다 차로. 대태미. 그러시대 패셔. 독점버리. 그래서 다 디디 난주 벤조 토네 지 아주 여러 자리에서는 말해 나도 껴보시다. 그봐. 가르에서는 나도 đảm bảo. 야, đảm bảo 지고기 되기면도 đảm bảo 연에 지금 세월 남는 신부이나 미샤살래야 카고로. 나도 đảm bảo 마저를 샤네. 나도 타식도 차와매가 나올 때네. 나도 다 탑주 제대로. 말은 다 나 자다 가서 다 저런지 지기 어려대 이내 야미를 그지체 너나 왜 공전 땅에 지금 무슨 도체 여대버들이 닝지 관체 탄압에 동링이 미버체니 대단하게 생긴 남자다 콩로다 더바다 디술라 말한수 참제다 쇠바다 그래서 이지사들의 파진이 그래서 라랭이 탈다 팬도케 요 말이데 이제 3년 안에 캐시도 그래서 딘지식 타네 맞을 때 탑주식이 열디 이내 잠재로다 맞춰야 타네 먼저 탑주식이 열이 딘지 인도산에 아주 벽이 야 갑조층에 초보 로주라네 주라 망도 넣어야 돼 아주 학삼다 삼반 남다 장대 야 메리를 차샤네 뭐네 지 콩로다 딘데 매바 체체 아주 니펜지고 안에 강에 세토나 삼베타네 매주셔베 인도산에 야 메리기 나로네 갑조층에 치만 넣어야되기도 그래서 내가 좀 시켜버려. 나도 봐봐요. 초보 매사 초보 뭐시 매사 뭐시 먹고지 도스 러너 쇼쇼쇼 줘야 돼. 나도 삼바 남다 장고 장샤 미 세와 마퍼에 터네. 아니 다 아주 깔에 제기 베이드산에 전부디 되가나 렌당으로 실내체 뭔가 도마치게 돼. 내가 좀 배배 릭숑 차려. 나도 배 미리 kum시 차려. 덴데게 다 참지 그다음에 니팽게 삼로 덴데디 아주 배배 땅에 짬 말에 전불린 대가 강에 먼 곳에도 참아놓으리야 참제로 찍다 니팽으로 찍 랑 대원 대버 동에 문제버 셴야 동에 문제버 대원 대버 임버식 삼루스당 신배이나 전불린 게 미세베 강에다 커져도 와 미 커져 세기도 와 다데 참제 삼르탄에 시주마도 고승그 탄에 세트야 요 말에 오유셴 세트야 요 말에 점물이 대강 강에 미 쿠르유기 남식 유래 탄에 데니네즈 가가래 생각나서 미스베 강에 디지디 차구쇼 탄에 매버서서 셔다가고 그러죠 점물이 되나 들어 배나 대베 들어 니슈베 나라 고전 배주시는 미크제 싸요래. 미사야 이제 하스 싸요. 됐어요 저기. 만약에 시디로 찍다. 네. 참두로 지용토야. 종무도가. 제가 내벨로 주 나로래. 오유셰. 톱주셰. 고전 느베타네. 지 카드잖아. 대별 루지 나로래 강에 세트야 중요 말이라 마음바로 이내 강에 세트야 켜는 말. 제가 들이 있는 만한수 배배 된다디 학습 남다 창고 장샤. 그다 참제 대병안에 가서 강에 세야 돼. 아주 미끼던시 전문이 뒤질래 갈 가정에 미끼던 돼야지다. 판도 제돼야지 요래. 자 들이 있는 내가 가서 권아도 제대로 쉬어야라. 남준이 시작되기에 맞아 배전을 잡죠 나면서 배발을 쳐니 배발을 쳐서 손에 삼르톤에 잡죠 쳐 맞다스 맞아 잡죠 친구들이 장대를 쳐니 잡죠 치고 그랬어 장대를 잡죠 친구들이 생에 또 시작되기 맞아 그런 챙기 맞아 체외람을 치니 미세 차서 제요나 배발 샤자다 잡죠 친구들 영향 걸쳐요 말 봐 내가 자샤나 저분이 가서 가는 걸 리기야래. 그 집에 그돌려 뭐고 가보시고 쳐야 돼. 난저때 하수 남다. gem등 먹어 봐. 그러나 펜시 대화지. 다 영향 삼들자 왜 먹고 가보시고. 자, 들이인데 때 내 체주게 말해. 난저 별미리 로동다 하rin이야. 또 자, 배나린데다 취주 참제 떠봐서도 마세베 참제 갑젠데 떠루 서부직 돈이 시작되게 하래. 된저기 떠줍디 더리께서 세리고 냠돌이야 당아서 구두체 돼야지다 펜션 로지 렌 돼야지 들으셔야겠다 된가서 뭐네 별 미리기 왜 리숑 뽑아쳐야지 레샤 전문이 뒤가라 남부 망구샤 요래 요래 이네 된저기 떠주 링스 링부지다 설리 자천부 된저지 나도 배방마다 야말다 자, 저희인들 나도 된적이다. 나도 판매는 마찬가지. 뭐네 배 균선의 제배 돈에 참석 고민하시는 지 된적이다 나도 저기 가서 공시 지어야 되버디. 딱 드리게서 나도 배워지고기 지 몸이야게 좀 말해. 정물이 찔러 판도 쳐도야게 누가 된적도. 자, 드리인들 전에 다다 편셔 있네. 나도 전주 개민 거민 용세시래디 대리께서 정부님 뒤가라 갈라 강상기 지 참지셔야 돼도 정부님 뒤가라 돈나사를 해야지 아주 제도도 자 드리 인도 다 띵은 상으로 생활해 만저 지금 미 가부쳐야다 지 양조 쳐야 돼 별미리 참지 리숑지다 된된 거란저 라니 계획에 있는 사람은 안 잡혀도 용되게 하래. 뭐다? 애니 소시시 변화를 여대에 자신만 뒤에 오늘 저기 다 참지 냠네 냥가 여봐. 강에 들으시고 와네. 다도 말한서 미리 리숑디 심지 되게 하래. 결이 조금 먹고 지겠다 가서 모살럽게 잡혀 쳐용도 와. 그래서 들이인들 말한서 닝도다 들으시 용돼야 돼. 나란서 배배 리숑탄이 뭐야래. 별 리숑 데이터 나무 있나 비밀사야 초기 대거대 여대버지래. 다 더리게서 별 리숑디 전부니 찔이야. 갈라 간서가 판도 쳐야지 땡대도. 내가 땡기기도. 최티기도. 자, 니네 인들 다 나란서 삼으러. 저서 지금 별들 나서 상면 승부를 야래. 별 나는 여대be 자신 만서 별등 거도 승부를 야래. 땅아주 승부르디 콩조세 지금 밀어 내밖에 된지 제약해서 말해 만주 심수디 참제배야 소리네 먼저 전에 줘보서야 된지 지금 와네 다 아주 댐베타 댄데세그리 세야 그 땅아주 사진 쏘디 나한테 통과해 고생키니 전다줘야 말이 계급 처음부터 저 고전키니 강에서야 탑시치기도 돼 강에서 책도 그 참지 강에서야지 두고 그래 레디네 뭐 참지 단에 강에서야 따라 dense 만남 나는 게 티셔버들이 뭐네 지금 참지게 근데 지금 타는 아주 그 강에 차샤네 근데 지금 타는 세트야지다 전부 찔려 있는 아주 봐 뽑아 챔버 타라 봐 미비된 돼야지 어떤 띵어도 삼다 거래 어때가 현실이셔서 대 군주 남아서 예선 뒤인데 내가 지금 현이 되어서 아니 저한테네 지금은 아더보도 다 뭐는 배바 샤자다 지금 잡죠 싫어야 그래 지금 첩시도 배저도 들이 강행 터네 지금 지금 대마대도 용기 열어도 있네 뭐는 지금 학생 키니 지금 점수 내려 터네 배정을 잡는 게 열에 애네 아메리카 차샤나 점불리 라와 덴베 점리 용조로기 패지 구직소를 차대요. 아메리카 시장 개천물에 자 대난에 인다 아메리카 저서 공업에 인다 팀이 맞아도 루부도 군주를 배시우지 말에 맞아 로만 그 코네 맞아 뭐시제 여대가 된지지 땅문에 디 템포에 맞아 저보다 잡혀 차대요. 세상 지나도 일이 될때 창아 펼쳐 아니 별거죠. 자한테 즉 동심 냠제다 댐배 잡혀기 남주 그게 별자시 매망 되네 자한테 땜어놔야 돼. 거리 채스 주의 안당안서 리송스잖아요. 7억이 계시 7억을 지금 그게 同样有些拍起马来，人生是在那做什么难了？我呢，耶路街上谁的？中山那边团的，女婿杨照老弟的，但是这边就人心人，对住人，对住一般印度山呢，让了国外第几的，对呢这个人嘛到，第几是呢到钱原要嘛的，东南谁的对呢？中国人嘛到让完去，结果他呢原要嘛的，人家一般印度山呢，对住的，南方的都上考的人呢。这牛毛个落了，对住落了那个么多啊？牛毛是对南上白了几个入住多，是对住对住这个这牛毛个入住呢，这个年这个杂音时间呢，这个身上超了出来的个人性修冲出去，杂音呢，这年音呢，这对呢这个人嘛多，上几个他呢用买吧，这些个人呢，这上面哪里啊？人性的落苹果去带出来就单单要，现在呢杂音是他这个被当成起来，另外原因是呢他这个想起来，你前几位写个多啊，然后控制3万可多了，控制3有的没多个休息，那个要的是，这没多个大家国主他们控制3万块的省不算下是，这前几位写个多。3万熊拿了来，大家大送要的，所以这里就是呢，俺是这个省的强制是要绝对呢，省的实地用的，实地熊呢，这个样子控制得更多，俺啥改名都是，是多啊，是俺能有这么子写这个，俺就是过年个月是你，你就是俺是俺光节个月是，这个他呢，刚才省了实地是那个多，省了实地是那个这个，但。旅游中国人呀，碰到有对不就单在这下，他什么控制3阶的，你吃住几个是那边的考过啥的，晓得吧？什么强制有呢？吃住养学得一下，晓得吧？是这里印度山的，这俺娘娘团的写给的，就是俺那上我老，后个去的人雄市站呢，这个他的是路的时下给是马的，后个人雄市站呢，什么牛蛋呀这个，什么牛蛋的，没那么点的牛蛋给是马的。军人上路当，但这对住军人上路当，但这个团呢，我是什么人就当然就多，但对还是人不能急了，我就判断起来这个，缺点有名的嘛对不对？缺点咱们的考虑要不然呢，但这个差不多，但强制送个样，但强制走透的，他不那么的，台湾这个没有嘛，军人的单呢，当香港人不要写不起，你这个对住的日本，这广场非是大上里个的，在这里印度，的，俺就北美的，当俺咱就查呢，老我就俺别清不人，咱就里头真呢，老有执行，但老就全年来这个的，就全年呢就来这个的，是，但娘娘朝东是啥呢？俺就北美的，我呢没不是刚来点呢。这个日凶啥这个，点的这个做下不的但我呢，人当差的是热下什么这个，所以呢，点这个日凶也被没力气呢，结不的，给我上过一什么成绩的，晓得吧？是，这种啊，从我老个胡大教的，第二技术人得上，这样的，中国那边做的啊，这个他们是虚差的，俺这第二次来的时候呢，俺这超过都是啥的。是吧？他当的刚开学对不对？家里评给要么的，别人评给要么的。这第三关系，第三样的长年前呢，当老出去他是清不的。刚开始谁个没得过？长年前呢，没什么突破那个的，经常那个的，经常来呢，强对用过嘛的，强对面呢，刚开始图嘛的，是吧？别没的，咱们生的差好差的。别没得个的，但是咱们就说强对中呢，单领用过的，单领中呢，假如你看老偏个，这样我就接着说，我说等俺是对这个厂呢，假如的我过去也不说了，这个等着这个早晚的嘛的，但见面的话，这个生就的现在好的，我大概2060吧， 그래서 이제 달러 60번 정도 나과 뒤에 뒤에 지기서 sha도 하래. 또 막 당장 하면 좀 말아. 아주 그네 걔네들이야. 저번도 시샤. 루기고 다는 아주 믹스를 넣어야래. 진짜 지금 상담. 아주 니 편식 상담 지금 얼마도. 진짜 그 자다 년세께 싸지는 말이야. 그래서 저는 그냥 이제 넣으셔. 네. 달러 60으로 나과 뒤에 걔네들 먹어서 나서 집에 있으면 몰라. 들이 다 제시라 개미도 인디네 되기 대한 숭신낭의 장 성월로미 뭐네 지금 심규태야 숭신낭의 중송 투시 세시 중이 다가는 신기 다가이니 맞아 다 망즈 람거타네 외두체니 야레데베 맞아 다 아주 시중부터네 숭실들이 자야 오나서 투시스기 에네 그거 먼저 아주 먼저 벽에 나온 시중사고 따당 더되게 하래 다 인지식이 나라리야 에네 지금 political leaders하고 지금 양 점조래 먹고지 에네 지금 prime minister 사람이 시기도 와 뒤고 철칙이 지금 내주 쳐도 와 그래서 딜레 presidency 러시아나 네 랍제 준진을 과야요래 지기다 가다지 기도 소관 담면들이야 presidency이 과도가 그래서 로지진에 맞을 때 상무 주물이 되게 가서 계속 주물이 사이는 벌거 안다 다 인지식 나라리야 아니 지금 political leader 지금 지금 먹고 되셔고 이렇게 매비체 그거 presidency 러시아나 맞을 때 직수시야래 아니 직수 되게 presidency 러시아나 맞을 게 힘들고 그래서 어두 아주 깨지 춤을 된지기 엔진에 들다가 맞아 더 저속 아니 소스 인지 숨게게 돌아야 숨셴 난시 아다 되게 폴레게 들려 이제 뜻이 들려다시 러이 제가가 샤가부송 투시 쇼기 제가가 공기 인지 깨돌 숨쉬는 자는 아래 숨쉬마 차세 땅에 내 인지 창조를 계기된 초스김도 될 벽에 하나 되시는 야가 삼창수 투시
디젤야 디타 통제 세냠 샤링 텐지 다들라네 투지 체슈 송셰 난규이 디다 쳄지라야 슈엘라 제고디 드베젤야 단다 지노 콘스캠 거 쳄모쳐다 컨트롤 행게 야 줄라 칸라 칩규 나야데 체자 미만 상마 소소 직쇼 슈살라마 야 슈로나 슈이
We will conclude the public felicitation with the Information Secretary equivalent of Department of Information and International Relations of Central Tibetan Administration, Dadun Sherling, conveying the vote of thanks. His Holiness will lead the delegation for a guided tour after the event to the main temple. I request the audience to remain seated.
As we bask under the spring-summer sun of Dharamsala, amidst the auspicious presence of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the U.S. congressional delegation, I'd like to thank everyone gathered here for making this morning truly memorable and momentous. I offer my deepest reverence to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Your Holiness, your presence transforms human lives. Your smile heals the human heart, and your words trains the human mind. I'd also like to thank U.S. House Representative Leader Nancy Pelosi, who a lot of us should know that she has been the first female speaker ever in the U.S. history. Thank you, Leader Pelosi, for accepting the invitation extended by the President of Central Tibetan Administration, Dr. Losar Sangye, which has come into fruition after 3 years. Thank you, Leader Pelosi, for your very insightful and powerful remark packed with positivity. And yes, hope exists, and it's the goodness that's going to instill and inspire hope. I thank all of the representatives, Representative Sensenbrenner, Elliot Engel, Jim McGovern, Betty McCollin, Judy Chu, Joyce Betty, and Pramila Jayapal. Thank you all for your presence, and thank you again for your insightful remark, which kind of reinforces the sense of belief and conviction that hope will always reign supreme. I also must thank the U.S. Embassy in Delhi, in particular Shashti Affairs Mary Carlson, under whose leadership ensured the success of today's event. And I would not really forget the International Campaign for Tibet, ICT, in particular Richard Gere, who, despite his best intentions, couldn't be here amidst us for reasons already cited by Dr. Sangye. So the unfolding of today's event, I think, is the culmination of the collective efforts of the Central Tibetan Administration and all of us present here. I thank everyone present here, especially the guests, the dignitaries, the media, the audience, TIPA artists, the Geshe-mas, Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile, and everyone who spoke here. What is actually happening here is a beautiful symbiosis of the spiritual, peaceful, and intellectual leadership of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the political leadership of Central Tibetan Administration, the resilience of Tibetan people inside and outside Tibet, and the steadfast, unwavering support of the US Congress. It goes without saying that today will be etched in the history of both United States and Tibet, as we remember our past, strengthen our present for a brighter, better, and a stronger tomorrow. Thank you all very, very much.
Larian Shuel ya Miman number ya Kushang Manorana and the Yarum Checho the Kunjo Henge ya Zula Khan la and Nancy La Penago DJ la ya Portan la Pep Madrupado Miman Sama Susu Shusalama Shurana Shuyi.